I'm coming. If you hand over to government to maintain, the budget the money and share it.
To live in that particular place that the house is. So it's supposed government to really compensate them so that and pay them and relocate them to where they are going and build another house for them.
Careful engineering and management to meet human needs. We are glad you joined us today on this episode of Property Doctor. Here we talk about the acquisition of properties, the maintenance and the management of properties. You can connect with us on our social media handles on Facebook, on Instagram and on YouTube like you're doing right now at Property Doctor NG and on Twitter at Property Doc NG. My name is Fumi Amunega Ajayi. Please click the like button if you enjoy this episode and don't forget to click on the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can get notified whenever a new episode comes up. And be sure we're going to give you a new episode talking about something that will interest you concerning your property. Today we'll be talking about managing soil erosion. Let's look at the meaning of soil erosion. Soil erosion is the displacement or the removal of the upper layer of the soil or the topmost layer of the soil. It is a form of soil degradation. This process is usually caused by maybe dynamic activity of erosive agents like water, like air, like plants, like animals. It depends on the area. Simply put, it is the process of eroding or being eroded by these elements like the water or any other natural agent. Sometimes it could even be caused by man or maybe activities of man. So managing erosion is an important thing to look into because the impact of erosion on our safety and economy is quite huge and sometimes very devastating, and it takes away your peace of mind. Water erosion often destroys buildings, roads, fences and other structures like bridges, car, ports and all that, buildings, sewage systems, roadways and even canals. The economy can be severely affected by flooding. Sometimes land contamination may occur and even spread during erosion, and in some places in Nigeria we really see the effect of erosion as so many people feel so helpless they don't even know what to do. You see, when erosion starts, it starts unnoticed, gradually like cancer. And before you know it, it becomes a monster. And if it is not well taken care of, people will lose their lives, their properties, their buildings, and even their peace of mind. Erosion occurs mostly where you have slopes, and the water tends to create its own course. It has its own natural course. If you don't create a pathway for water, it creates its own pathway for itself. And when the land is a level land over a period of time and water tends to stay there, with time it washes away the topsoil gradually and it starts eroding. We need to be careful when we see these things happening and act quickly, or even act before we see the impact. For instance, if you see water keep staying on a particular place, you have to find a way to allow the water flow away carefully so that it doesn't affect the soil over a period of time. Professionals have an idea of what to do when they see things like these happen and can even prefer management techniques so that you can save your time and save your peace of mind. This is why we are talking about erosion today, so that we don't have to worry about this during the rainy season or whenever something like that is about to happen. But let's look at the impact of erosion. During erosion, we have higher rates of runoff or shedding of water and nutrients otherwise used for crop growth. We are now looking at it from the agricultural point of view. You see, you can lose newly planted crops, you can lose the deposit of silt in low-lying areas. Now, the soil also will not have the ability to store its water and nutrient, and it exposes the subsoil to poor physical and chemical properties, and this may not be good for plants and also not good for our buildings. These are general ways erosion can impact our society. But let's look at the impact of erosion on construction and on building. Soil particles can be transported by water or wind, and soil erosion can be caused majorly by water impacting the property in a way that you might lose your vegetation, trees, and maybe the slope instability or the weakening of your home foundation. Let me break it down simply. You can lose the stability of the soil, and the foundation can be affected because maybe it may be exposed to the weather or exposed to other materials, so the foundation of the building will be affected. More materials and techniques when building on such lands are needed, so you use more money to build on those kind of areas or to cause repair in that area. Now, the pollution of the water or sedimentation can occur in any area where you have erosion. Now, what kind of structures should we be looking into? We're looking into the buildings, their foundations, the roads, we're looking at bridges, we're looking at canals, and so on. Erosion, like we talked about, is a natural process in which physical sources such as wind and water can carry away the field's topsoil. It could be a natural process, and it could even be man-made. Soil erosion is an ongoing process that takes place either slowly or at an accelerating rate. It depends on the nature of the soil and the source of the erosion, whether it is water or wind. So it depends on what is causing the erosion. So that will tell you how fast the erosion is going to happen in that particular area. It contributes to the continuous topsoil removal or maybe ecological destruction, the collapse of the soil, and the failure that it will cause or anything that is around that area. Some causes of erosion are maybe farming, grazing, mining, some construction and recreational activities. Soil erosion is usually caused due to the removal of the vegetation or any activity that renders the ground dry, bare, empty. Soil erosion consequences are not just land loss. It has contributed to a dramatic rise in river contamination, sedimentation, which obstructs water sources, resulting in the reduction of aquatic organic population. Then maybe the degraded land loss ability will not be able to carry water, resulting to flood, because we have the surface has been lost, so it will not be able to carry water and sometimes lead to flood. Sometimes some area will be lost totally, and instead of having the land, you now have a big gully because you have exposed it over a period of time. Now let's look at what we can do to save the land, to help our buildings, to help our structures. We've talked more on agriculture today, but let's look at it on the construction side. Now we have to use land. It's good to use land according to its capability and its capacity. So if you're building in an area whereby erosion has affected the building, then you need to do a proper foundation for it to prevent the water affecting the foundation. And if you have built already, there are remedies, there are some things that you should do to protect the building, that is creating a drainage for water to pass through. You can also protect the soil surface with some sort of cover, maybe to cover the soil to prevent the water from flowing in a way that it will wash off the topsoil. Now, control runoff before it develops into an erosive force. That means you have a way to control the way water is running off on that particular land or around the building or in an area, so that you don't have erosion happening. Keeping erosion away from our buildings is an important aspect that we should look into and we should prevent. So now let's look at the prevention of erosion or soil erosion around our buildings. There are various methods for preventing soil erosion or reducing soil erosion. Now let's look at some of them. Preventing excessive grazing, or maybe you can prevent deforestation If you prevent deforestation, you can even have a cool environment. You can have plantation of trees on the land and plants, and when I say plant, I mean having a permanent vegetation. We can also do mulch matting. Mulch matting can be used to reduce erosion on slopes. Mulching is a technique of adding a layer to the surface of the soil to suppress weeds and prevent water loss through evaporation. You can put series of fiber logs to prevent any water or soil from washing away. We're trying to protect the soil. A retaining wall at the base of the slope can help to prevent the soil from eroding or washing away. You can build a retaining wall so that you can support whatever soil is coming up so that it doesn't wash away. Every household should have a proper drainage system so that water flows down into the water collecting system properly. You need to collect the water coming up from your home properly into the drainage system. This will help prevent erosion. Now, it's good to build retaining walls and edging. Now, when you build retaining walls, you do it in a way that it can protect the soil, not just building a retaining wall. I've seen retaining walls that fell because it was not properly done. So you need to do retaining walls properly. Get a professional, let them do the structural details of the retaining wall and know the height and the size that will be capable to prevent erosion in that area. Another thing we'll be looking at is riprap. Riprap is a form of gathering stones used to form a foundation for breakwater or other structure. So when you have arranged the stones together and the force of water is coming, you find out that it will break the force of the water coming when it hits the stone. So it doesn't allow erosion to happen almost immediately. You see this usually maybe in some areas where you have beach or there's water always flowing. So you see this riprap around that area. You can also have permanent vegetation or forages. Also try to have a no-till farming and gardening in any area you see that there's a tendency to have erosion. No-till farming is an agricultural technique for growing crops or pasture without disturbing the soil through tillage. When you keep tilling the ground, you find out that you can lose it, becomes soft. So no-till farming decreases the amount of soil erosion tillage, and it can help you prevent erosion, especially in sandy and dry soils on slopey drain. When you prevent no tillage on that area, you find out that in that sloping area you are able to protect the soil. You can also use cover crops. Cover crops are plants that are planted to cover the soil rather than for the purpose of being harvested. You just plant those crops just to cover the soil, to protect the soil from erosion. And it can also help soil fertility and soil quality. The next one we'll be talking about is soil erosion control blankets. That's the ECB or fiber rolls. These are materials that we use to cover the ground to prevent erosion. So if you don't have it, you can use the vegetation to cover the ground. Let's always try to protect our soil to prevent it from eroding so that we can protect our buildings and our structures in those areas. Thank you for staying with us today on the program Property Doctor. I hope you learned something and hope you're going to work towards protecting your building from erosion. We hope to see you same time next week for another interesting episode of Property Doctor. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day. God bless you and bye.
I'm coming. If you hand over to government to maintain, the budget the money and share it.
To live in that particular place that the house is. So it's supposed government will compensate them so that and pay them and relocate them to where they are going and build another house for them.
Careful engineering and management to meet human needs.